to YouTube. No, we gotta look that up here. Son of a bitch. It's in the chat. It's not in the chat replay. It's in the fucking transcript. What can I do to help? Got Dev T. I thought I had CSW. So we're gonna go back to about here. Go back to Dev T. Not this play.
However, actually in practice, you hire someone, you put them in that post, and then they don't know what they're doing because they haven't been trained, they haven't been hatted like we discussed last week. So of course they're going to be asking, how do I do my job? Like, you're my boss, tell me what to do. And now suddenly that person is becoming a problem because you're having to spend your time telling them how to do their job, and that means they're incompetent and stupid and all these other things because they're a distraction from you on focusing on your mission. Which I just think is hilarious when you take a step back and look at it and you go, you've hired this person to help you out. And when they try and help you, you look at them as a problem because they're not complying. And it's just, you lose all sense of reality. You lose the perspective of, you've hired someone, you need to train them. That's going to take a bit of your time before you can expect them to deliver. But in Scientology, there's no room for that. It's, you're now doing this job and you need to perform, go, go, go. And that's the mechanism of Scientology.
I haven't taken notes in a
It
while.
just puts you in this mindset of control and compliance. And Dev T is one of the things that you can use as a senior to bring your juniors into line and make sure they comply. It's just another one of the tools in the tool belt.
That's right. That's exactly right. And let's remember, if this sounds silly, and it kind of does, let's remember the context that we've talked about before, right? The on-the-job training and hatting that they're doing is crazy making. We already went over that last week and how nuts it is, right? And how the sequences are all off and you never really know whether you're on the right path. I watch people, by the way, go through, you'd get this program of what you're supposed to do to get.
Okay, so we're talking. Oh, right, that's what it was. We're talking about in management. We need to go to posts, and we're talking about newbies, maybe HCO expediters. So that's where I had some information.
Trained for your job. I watch people go through 4 different iterations of those programs, as to which courses they're supposed to do, what training they're supposed to do, and whatnot.
So I took those notes already. I got, like, if you're being berated by your senior, even though you did it right, you have to come up with an excuse as to why it wasn't done correctly. The junior can blame Dev T on others. So if I look up where body route is, there we go. We're right here.
Oh,
God. Fucking allergies, man. It's getting to be that time of year now. And it's fucking insane. Come on. Why are you not working? This is stupid. Why are you not working? There we go. Now. Got my lights up. Got my string lights. I'm gonna turn Carmen's on too. There we go. Nice little thing around the corner of the room. Bless you. Yeah, allergies already stuck. You know what? That actually reminds me. I'm gonna go take anti-allergy meds. Took my meds. We'll see how long it takes to fix. I also got a new headset. I got a SteelSeries headset. I have a SteelSeries. SteelSeries what? I want to say. Wait, the box is in the recycle. Wait a minute. No, I have a receipt. Nope, we threw out the receipt. SteelSeries Arctis Nova 1. That is the name of this particular headset.
Number of times, Alex, why didn't you sell enough books this week? Oh, it's because this person, didn't body root all day last week, or
That's right.
he showed up 10 minutes late to post, and that's why we're 20 books down this week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you don't want to be min-maxed over to ethics, right? All right. Now, the other thing we're gonna and Dev T is something we could just talk about for hours because there's all the different categories of it and stuff. But we're not gonna go that
and
deep.
Chris,
I just
I
wanted
want to talk about it for hours. Please come.
I should absolutely try to do a stream with Alex about Dev T. Because he mentioned it's his favorite subject in Scientology. So, I mean, if they don't do a podcast on it, I might whoop and grab.
We talk about it for hours. We should
It
do
also will provide me with a lot of information that I don't yet have, and a lot of cultural understanding about how Dev T works and how it goes between seniors and juniors and all that stuff.
I'd love it. I'm here for it. But no, let's move on. Go on.
I mean, there's even Anyway, it's pretty funny. But it's a very uniquely Scientology concept, I'm gonna say. I haven't run into. I've looked at a couple other business model. How do MBAs get trained? What management administrative systems or guides or systems are there out there? Something called Sigma 6, and there's the Honda sort of philosophy and that companies adopt, and different systems, right? And
Really
they don't have anything like this that I could find. It's because it's so not a thing.
and it's so culty. you mean
Basically,
these big organizations and like professional bodies and respected academic institutions aren't employing a cult tactic, Chris? What are you talking about?
I know. In fact, if anything, stressing what we were talking about with new staff, if anything, those systems really try to put structures in place to allow for open communication, and maybe not a fully open door policy. I'm not suggesting everybody's on board with that, but more transparency, more openness. Anytime you're trying to make things more efficient or improve quality or improve the production line, that's how you do it. Is you open the communication and you get more information, more data. You don't shut it down because you know how things are and you don't have to hear from these people. And I know for a fact that attitude is what creates incredible worker betrayal.
Yeah, and I don't look, these systems that are used in the real world. They're not by any means perfect, and of course there are problems with them as with any other system. But I agree with you in that I haven't seen a system in the real world that is quite like DevT. There is no system that is being taught or applied or used in a real non-culty business or organization which effectively punishes people simply for asking questions, for trying to do a better job.
The fact that any of this even exists, the fact that they think to even have this culture of juniors are just annoyances and inconveniences and are there to create Dev T for everyone. I don't get why someone doesn't, or how someone doesn't bring that up as like a fucking dumb thing. I'm sorry, but I feel like these are things I would never be able to look past even in a cult setting, because I know a lot of cults, they do the whole like just convoluted, just everything that cults do. It sucks. And I could not imagine having to work under such circumstances where I, as the new trainee or the HCO expediter, am being told that I have to get hatted for, let's say, we had Alex's job, director of public book sales. And I'm getting told by my senior, no, you have your hat pack, which whatever, you have the hat pack, fine. But the fact that I pretty much have no time to study it. Oh wait, I gotta do staff status 1 and 0 and 1 first. Staff status 2, who knows if I'd be getting that done if I worked there. And especially the hat pack, I feel like it'd be just oh, produce. Bitch, I have a hat pack I have to go through. I'd have to learn what it means to be your public book sales or any of that stuff. Hello, Style Audit. Oh, Miriam's not live right now? Is she supposed to be?
Systems that, maybe aren't efficient or great or whatever. But I've never seen something that literally says, by sending an email to your boss saying, hey, I'm here to help, what can I do to help you, results in you being punished. That doesn't exist in the real world. And that's what DevT at its core really is.
That's right. I agree completely. Now, moving on, because we got a few other things to cover here, is this business of correct communication and something, again, kind of interesting in Scientology, not completely without parallel in other fields, though, is a thing called completed staff work.
Let's go to
But the problem with how this is used in Scientology, of course.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do this. We're going to reset this screen so that I'm down here now. Actually, yeah. You know what? We'll get terminology up. Add a new window source. Turn that up a little. Hello, hello, test, test. 1 2 1 2 3. Hello, hello, hello. Better. Add window capture. Add. Nope, we're not doing Discord. We're doing terminology. We're going to shrink that down. We're going to see how much room this takes up. Right about there. And then we'll shrink in the side until it about lines up. Now we will do CSW. Oh wait, I need to do my source page. My sources. That's how this shit works. Okay. Come on, you asshole. There we go. Got the sources. Oh, that needs to say info. 1 second. Okay.
Is, as we'll explain, it sort of shifts the burden of responsibility. And it basically, the concept here is that communications is similar to the DevT thing, right? They're supposed to be originated by the right person, going to the right person on the correct channels. You don't send your communication to the janitor first and then have it go to your senior. You send it to your senior, right? That would be a silly example, but a valid one. But the CSW thing, the completed staff work, I think, again, this is I'm guessing this is something that Hubbard picked up from or was inspired by the military, because I think a lot of his administrative ideas came from his time in the military, in the Navy. But the CSW requires that a junior never bring a problem to a senior without a fully worked out recommendation for its solution. The policies are designed to protect the senior's time
Again, stupid right out of the gate.
at the senior without a fully worked out recommendation in the Navy. But the CSW requires that a junior never bring a problem to a senior without a fully worked out recommendation for its solution. The policies are designed to protect the senior's time at the expense of the juniors. While the CSW is presented as a tool of efficiency, it functions as a barrier to feedback. If a junior identifies a massive structural flaw but cannot provide an on-policy solution, the report is rejected as Dev T.
I mean, it's not just...
On-policy solution, the report is rejected as Dev T. Right? Your CSW is Dev T. It's, in fact, an incomplete CSW, and it gets returned to you incomplete, right? Because you didn't provide a solution. But here's the $100 million question. If you're the one in the junior position, how are you supposed to have access to all the information and resources that you need to solve that problem? That's why your senior's there. And if you can't have an open communication with that person, it's a bit of a barrier rather than a solution. And an efficient, and rather than min-maxing an efficiency, we're dealing with repeating and confusing problems that don't get solved.
And
I was curious about your experience with it.
well,
The enormous amount of significance placed upon every little action is in itself a stress inducer designed to captivate. Dev T is at least a label for it.
the whole CSW thing is, again, it's a formalization of something that doesn't need formalizing, right? Prime example, I was head of book sales, so we wouldn't go sell books outside the org because no one would buy Dianetics or do stress tests in the city of London because they're all bankers and they know what Scientology is. So they weren't interested. So we would go somewhere else in London where, English wasn't the number one language or whatever, right? So we would have to hire a taxi to put all of the books and the tables and the chairs and stuff in the back of the taxi to drive us to where we want to go. And then at the end, we'd get a taxi back. And we would do this every Wednesday without fail. It would cost about £30. We'd make the money back in book sales, no problem. But we cannot go book selling without this taxi, because if we were to just set up a table outside the org, we wouldn't sell anything. So we have to go somewhere that's not where the org is located. That's the way it was done. That's what happened every week. And yet, I still had to submit a CSW every single week requesting the money for the taxi. And in the CSW, again, like, it doesn't, in the real world, right? It would be an email to finance going, hey, can you approve 30 quid for a taxi? Yes, no problem, done, right? But no, you have to type up a CSW in a specific format. What's the data? Like, what's the situation? What's the data? What's the solution, effectively? And it's like, okay, what's the problem? The problem is that I can't go book selling because I need to get a taxi and I don't have a taxi sorted. I don't own a car. The problem is we need to be able to go out and sell books. What's the data? Okay, well, the data is we don't have a car. I don't have a car. All the book stocks are at the org, and we want to go and sell books in this place. And we need a way to get from the org to the place where we sell books. And there is no way of doing that right now. Solution: you give me £30 so I can hire a taxi and go sell books. Like, you have it's
So fucking dumb. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I am going to load up just a quick thing in my notes. Let me load up my completed staff work. Did I have a CSW in here in this packet? Ooh, bunch of new acronyms. I gotta do this later. Where is the CSW? That's a compliance report. What the fuck? Okay. Does this have a... Well, it's got a program. I can tell you that much. What? Okay, hold on. Data, major target, primary targets. I don't need that. I just want to take a look. Program LRH Security, codename Power. Begin at once to build up a U.S. BAG office, so something Attorney General's office, that is permanent and effective in all bureau, both to take this load off LRH and CSG lines and to proof up the USB against catastrophes in any bureau area. Oh, it even tells you who's who. Oh, that's cool. Tells you what posts they had and stuff. I really got to look through this old Guardian's office stuff. Alright, we're just going to load up a real CSW. Is this it? Is this the one? Here it is. Here's one. CSW. Situation: I need to get CF supplies ordered for NNCF. Data: we need to reorder CF folders, materials guide charts, and deceased cards. Last week we completely ran out of CF folders and material guide charts. These need to be ordered immediately, as otherwise we are unable to make NNCF due to no folders available. The quantity in the order is calculated to last for 2 months. The CF order is attached and comes up to $596. This relatively small quantity will suffice for a while. Solution: approve the attached CF supplies order so that we can have CF materials for NNCF. Fucking dumb. Here's another one. Situation: K9 units are hired for the base patrol to keep intruders off base. This is about IAS security. Data: on this IAS event, we expect a picket of people that will attempt to break into the base. The best quotation we got is from the company we used last year as follows: $1,728 for 96 hours at 18 pounds an hour for 2 GP dogs and handlers for 12 hours a day for 4 days. 12 hours a night for 4 nights, again, $1,728. With the total being roughly 4,147 pounds. Pounds. We're currently only covering 144 hours, coming to a total of 3,110 pounds and 40 pence. Solution: approve 311040 to be paid out to Invicta K9 for the dog patrol dogs. That's from the... Oh, they wrote much love. They wrote ML. It's so stupid. Besides, everyone in the military knows to bypass superiors and go to the people who help, like, dare I say it, the janitor and the acquisition guy.
Actually, just thinking about it now is mind-boggling. You have to go into all this detail and explain it all like this just so that they can give you 30 quid to get the taxi. It's creating dev T, but the purpose of it is to resolve dev T.
Exactly. Exactly. And these things can get insanely complicated. Um, CSWs, completed staff works, right? We'll just call them CSWs because it's basically, a few pieces of paper, if not one piece of paper with the situation, data, and solution, right? And then a line for the senior to approve it or
While you're
reject it.
talking, I'm going to try and find something.
Oh yeah, great. These are used all throughout Scientology. And for example, for those of you who remember the RPF, the Sea Org prison program that I did for 3 years, in order to get off that program, you have to submit a CSW that goes through about 5 different people and lands on the desk of RTC. And they have to look through a bank with this CSW as evidence that you are a graduate of the RPF program. It took us a month to put the CSW itself together, working at it 5 hours a day. So some of these CSWs, when Alex says these things take time, he ain't kidding. These things can take weeks to put together, and you're still expected to be doing the rest of your job around that. So, for example, a building purchase, this is handled with CSW policy. So the organizations put a whole package together of why this building is the building that should be bought, and here's the situation, data, solution, etc. So it can be used in creative and interesting ways, in
Hello,
ways that you
Jennifer
might
Layton.
think, okay, that kind of makes sense as far as a completed package of something that I might need in order as a distant senior executive to approve something. But as Alex just pointed out, at the local level, this just becomes a time sink. And I believe even worse than the inefficiency of it is the sort of barrier that it creates between the junior and the senior almost 100% of the time, because the seniors start getting this attitude problem about CSWs. Where's the CSW? Why isn't it complete? Well, I have a question about this. Well, I have a question about that. And you're going to laugh at this because we're going to cover another point in a few minutes, which is completely contradictory to the CSW policy that executives are supposed to do. So it actually, from our lived experience, I think it's pretty safe to say that this actually creates more problems than it solves. And the entire effort of it is solving problems. So it's pretty ironic.
Yeah, what I was just looking for is I have a real world CSW here.
There it
So
is.
this is what a CSW looks like. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
back to front. It's back to front for me. But essentially it says situation and you explain what happened, and then the data, the information, and the solution. And then you have approved, not approved, and then it's signed by your senior and the date it was approved. And so on. So I just wanted to give people the visual of this is what a CSW looks like. This isn't the one that I was looking for, but one that comes to mind was I remember I think I mentioned on a previous live stream, my dad was sick at one point and ended up in hospital. And I was like, I've got to go and see my dad. Drop everything, family moment, emergency. I'm going to go see my dad. Well, no, you need to do a CSW. Well, no, I don't have time for that. I'm going to go see my dad. He's in hospital. It's like, well, no, yeah, but how are you going to make sure that your stats don't crash? You've got a responsibility to sell these books. And if you leave your post, then, so what are you going to do to make sure that books are sold while you go and see your dad? So had to come up with a CSW of like, okay, well, my counterpart, so the person who had the same job as me, but on the foundation org, we would occasionally do like a shift swap. I would say, cool, I need 2 hours off on Wednesday afternoon. Can you come in and sell books then? And then I'll give you 2 hours on an evening or a weekend or something. We do that. But in the real world, you just informally do that and be like, cool, I'm going to do these hours, you're going to do these hours, we're all good. No, you have to write it down, put a CSW and say, cool, so the situation is that my dad is in hospital and I need to go and see him. What's the data? Well, my dad was taken ill and I'm meant to be on post on these days and these times, and I need to leave within the next 30 minutes. Otherwise, I'm not going to go and see him in the hospital. And, someone needs to make sure the books are sold. So that's the data. And the solution is, and also in the data, I've already spoken to the Derpodic Book Sales Foundation, and she has agreed that she can cover my shift. So the solution is approve me to leave now and her to take over for 2 hours. Right. Something as simple like that. It has to be formalized and then it has to be approved, and then you can go and do it. Like, it's just adding extra confusion and delay to something that doesn't need that bureaucracy. So it's highly hypocritical that Scientology is meant to be about efficiency and logic, and yet the idea behind the CSW, get your orders written down, come to your senior with a solution rather than a problem. I can understand that as a concept, but in reality, what it's doing is actually making more problems than it's solving.
Exactly. And this is the nature of bureaucracy, of course. This is hardly anything new to or unique to Scientology, but this is how Scientology manifests it, right? This is how they create all the busy work. This is how they have people tied up for hours writing things down and doing all this evidence gathering and report writing that isn't going anywhere or doing anything or even producing any of their numbers or metrics, right? Their stats. So the whole thing is just a kind of a big administrative circle jerk, or dare I say, Dev T.
And that's the thing, like, there is no alternative word for it. Like, you can describe it and everyone understands what we're talking about, but there is no English term for
That's right.
Dev T.
That's right. Exactly. But I
Which
just
is
think
one of
I
those
just
few
thought it
things
was
that I do credit Hubbard with. Dev T is a good word and a good term that we don't have in real world English. I'm not
fair
going to
enough.
use it in everyday life, but it is a good word.
Fair enough. Now we're gonna now I've mentioned a couple minutes ago there's this other thing that is actually completely contrary to it, and again I'm gonna contextualize this with, okay, you're an executive trainee, you're at Flag, this is the first time you're being exposed to this information, or you're learning how to be an executive, and then you're gonna go back to your org and you're gonna apply this information. So dev T, no dev T, let's min max the organization, let's efficiency everything. CSWs, if anybody wants anything, you got to write that down, get me all the information, and I'll approve it or disapprove it, based on how good your CSW is. And eventually we'll get everything rolling just so smoothly and so efficiently, right? However, you then run into this a policy letter called Look, Don't Listen. And in this policy, the basic concept is that Hubbard instructs executives to ignore verbal reports or explanations from staff. They only observe the physical scene and the statistics. And that's all they're supposed to use in judging how good or bad or efficient something is, or whether something should be done or not done. Hubbard asserted, quote, he had never had a correct explanation from a staff member why this thing wasn't working, end quote. Never, he said. Staff will never give you the right reasons or give you from a staff member why this thing wasn't working, end quote. Never, he said. Staff will never give you the right reasons or give you the right explanations. They're just going to PR their way through it, or they don't know. Otherwise, they'd solve it themselves, wouldn't they? That's why you're there, Mr. Executive. This is the training you're getting in this look, don't listen. So by assuming all staff explanations are PR, or wrong whys, as they say in Scientology, the system prevents executives from understanding legitimate human or environmental obstacles. What do you think about that?
It's again, it's a control mechanism.
Executives from understanding legitimate human or environmental obstacles. What do you think about that?
It's again, it's a control mechanism. It's a blame game situation. It's basically saying, don't listen to people, make your own mind up, and observe with your own two eyes and just ignore whatever they say. It's saying that everybody is a liar, right? Which is, it is not healthy to have that view on people. You know, if you've, like we talked about last week or the week before, about the org board and hiring people and hatting them so they know how to do their job. Well, if you have hired someone
Hello,
and
Journey.
you've hatted them and you trust them to do the job they've been given and know how to do it, well, you should also trust what they've got to say. If their stats go down and they go, oh, well, it's because, you know, there's why auditors, why are you not auditing anybody? Well, because we don't have any PCs, right? We need to get more books sold, more people on course, and more people therefore doing auditing. So me as an auditor, I can't do anything about, I can't manufacture PCs like pre-clears, right? So, you know, understandable with logic. I'm not auditing anyone because there's no one to audit. But this policy is like, well, no, don't listen to a word they're saying, right? Look at the problem and fix it.
Exactly. And there's an implicit, okay, there's two consequences of this. And I recall this so many times. I remember being stuck in this head space of very much feeling like I was between two crushing walls, right? Because there is this CSW, the junior is supposed to give you all the information you need to be able to solve this particular problem or issue or understand it or whatever. But there's this tension that gets created of, philosophically, Hubbard is not unclear about this. He never had a correct explanation for a staff member why this thing wasn't working. So you can't trust anything these people are telling you. You have to go look for yourself. But the whole point of the CSW is to save you from having to do that. This is right.
And let's not forget as well, the act of bypassing somebody is in itself dev T. So the idea of, if your junior isn't doing what they're supposed to, their stats are down or whatever, you're supposed to basically bypass that person, step in, fix the problem, and then, you know, handle the person so that it doesn't happen again. And that's meant to be the solution. Cool. Ignore the person whose job it is, step in, sort it out. But that's dev T. Rather than train the person, encourage them, educate them, you know, find out what they need to be performing better, any of that sort of human stuff. No, jump in, ignore everything they've said and done, fix the problem, and then tell them why they were wrong and tell them how you fixed it so they can carry on doing it, and then have a go at them for creating this dev T because you having to take your job, your mind off of your job.
Hold up, Alex. We're getting a little far here. Jump in, ignore everything they've said and done, fix the problem, and tell them why they were wrong, and tell them how you fixed it, and then have a go at them for creating dev T.
And tell them how you fixed it so they can carry on doing it, and then have a go at them for creating this dev T because you having to take your job, your mind off of your job so that you can handle their mistakes is a big flap, and then you're just pissed off at this person. Like, where is the humanity in that? Where is the development, the encouragement, the, helpfulness? It's just all about punishment and, denigration.
That's right. That's a great point. And the danger you're talking about bypassing, which is a steps of the danger formula, which are the steps a senior is supposed to do when his junior is screwing up. And it's interesting how the steps of the formula assume automatically that the reason that the senior is having to go in and do the junior's job is because the junior is out ethics. It's written into the formula itself. Find and handle your out ethics situation and use self-discipline to correct it, get honest and straight, right? So that's right there in the formula. It's not that you didn't know what to do because we haven't had it or trained you yet, even though we never get that part done. It's always ethics, right?
Mhm.
So there are pathways in Scientology that you go, oh, well, it's supposed to be this. No, actually, it's this. But I thought it was supposed to be, no, it's actually this. And these things run into each other all the time. And this look, don't listen attitude of the seniors is a inculcated attitude. Hubbard teaches it to you. And this is the look, don't listen policy this is what the data series is all about. Evaluations are all about this is just ignore what people are saying. And Hubbard's basic assumption on this, what he basically says is the reasoning for it, is because if they knew what the problem was, they'd solve it, which is so arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
It's such arrogance.
And that applies to everything in Scientology, not just the administration side of things. Even if you look at sales, regging, like how that whole thing works.
Yeah.
I was trained in this. That was my job, right? Is to ignore what the person is telling you and get to the root cause to then sell them the book, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have any money because, I'm in debt and my salary doesn't come in until next week. It's like, okay, thank you. But how do we make money appear now? Like, ignore whatever excuse they just give as to why they can't donate however much money or buy this course or whatever. Ignore it completely.
Yep.
We need the solution. This is the outcome that I have decided I want, and therefore I'm going to make you come to that same conclusion by any means possible. Like, it is exploitation, it is manipulation, and it is, again, forcing you to comply rather than being human and understanding, right?
Well,
There is
exactly.
no answer other than comply with what I demand.
I mean, because it trains you into it. You're literally trained to not listen to your juniors, and it's like I don't know how I would have ever have. I mean, thankfully, thankfully, whatever. I got along with a lot of my juniors over the years in Scientology because I ignored this and actually did listen to them because I thought they had more data than I did, and I needed to know what the hell was going on. And I didn't assume that they were just a bunch of numbnut idiots who didn't know what they were doing. And it's very clear when you look at the sales registration
Now that's
policies.
big is seeming to let the lower level staff members, the EDs and deputy EDs and all these people, and they're submitting their data up to management and all that stuff. It's nice to know at least that while Chris was in management that he didn't follow this look, don't listen policy. Could you imagine if he had to follow, is my mic on? Yes. Could you imagine if they had to follow Look, Don't Listen for all of the fucking orgs that he oversaw? He would be spending his entire time looking into data files, looking into the microfiche, looking into evaluate. I want to say org evals, but they haven't been doing those. Hold on. There's org evals, there's programs, there's statistics, and there was something else. I can't remember what it was. But I'm just imagining Chris having to do his job while having to look into each of these orgs, find the why, find everything that he needs. I mean, it's already what he fucking did in his job every Thursday at 2. He consolidated the data, he figured shit out, and he had to send it up to the programs chief. But, alright, I don't know where I was going with that. Let's get back to the video.
You look at these general policies, you see Hubbard and his mindset, which is very similar to Miscavige's. I don't trust these people any farther than I can throw them. They're probably here to take my money anyway. So I better, and I better make all these policies that lock them in so that I keep getting my money. I really think at the bottom of the whole thing is that. But
also
yeah.
create enough contradictions that I can save myself. So make them confused enough that whatever I want, there's a policy I can use to get the outcome that I want.
Bingo. Oh, nailed it on that one. Absolutely. I completely agree. Okay, and then the last point that we're going to cover today, because we are trying to keep these down to hour-ish episodes if we can, is this other... Okay, now this is a little bit of a weird one, and we can go deep on this, but I don't think we're going to today because it can get over into this kind of weird thing.
Q&A. Let's talk about Q&A. We need to go to terminology. Go to Q&A. Sources. Got our sources. Got our info. I always thought Q&A was just kind of like, before I watched this and learned about what Q&A actually was, from my understanding, it was more along the lines of backflash and the strictness around it. So my brain went, oh, person is doing their job but needs to ask questions, and they start asking a lot of questions. They're like, well, how do I get to this place? Well, what do I need to get to this place? Stop Q&Ing. I thought it, like, that's the example I thought. It was someone trying to gain, literally just kind of that thing that kids do, where you ask why every answer just to see how much farther you can get. And I thought that's what this was relating to, was just being kind of playing into that mindset of your staff member being annoying or people being annoying and trying to push through their banks and all that stuff. I don't know. I think you catch my drift.
But this is a phrase in Scientology that doesn't mean what you think it does. It's Q&A. And Q&A is question and answer, but it has a very special use and definition in Scientology when it comes to tech. And then there's another usage for it, which is also just as strange and unique on the administrative side. So we're going to talk about the administrative side today. And the Q&A is basically, he calls it man's deadliest disease, right? It's a deadly disease. Don't Q&A. So it's not just taking questions and giving answers. That's not what this is. It's accepting an excuse or being reasonable with a junior's failure to comply. It is a policy that explicitly forbids empathy. I think that's important to note. On top of the look, don't listen that we just covered. An executive who considers a junior's personal circumstances, such as illness or sleep or overload, you're Q&Aing. You're being reasonable with that person's excuses.
I never thought that. I don't know. When I think of the term Q&A, I just don't think of the idea from just being reasonable in Scientology. I mean, I don't know.
Then this is just the phrase they use, Q&A, right? It doesn't really make a lot of sense
No, it
as a
doesn't.
phrase, but that's how Hubbard uses that term. And it creates that. Remember when we were talking about the product officers a couple weeks ago, you there, George Thunderbird, right? This pitiless product officer. I don't care that your girl just left you. I don't care your mom just died. I don't care you just got fired from your job. Get in that course room, drown your sorrows in L. Ron Hubbard policies, right? If you didn't do that as an executive or product officer, you would be Q&Aing with that person's excuses for not getting on course.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say it takes away empathy. Did you
Yeah.
ever run across this term
All the time.
or practice?
Chris, all the time. Don't be worker oriented.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because my job was to, I had a couple of juniors, but I also had a lot of FSMs. My job was to recruit.
Please hold, Alex, because now I need to load your profile.
Public Scientologists to come out book selling with us, and I had a couple of juniors, but I also had a lot of FSMs. My job was to recruit public Scientologists to come out book selling with us, and in order to sell books, you need a lot of people to do that. And I would always be trying to schedule people and be like, okay, who's in the org on Wednesdays? Cool, who's available? Who can come out? And people would, when I first started, people, oh, I can't do. I'm on course in the org on Wednesday, but I've got to leave at 4 because I've got to go and pick up the kids from school. And I would go, okay, yeah, fair enough, no worries. Well, maybe we can do it another time. But no, Alex, no, don't be worker oriented, right? No Q&A. Get them to agree to come out book selling. I'm like, yeah, but they've said they've got to go pick up their kids, right? And I can't tell them to finish course at 3 instead of 4 so that they come out book selling, because then I'm taking someone out of the course room and I can't do that. So I have to get them to do, and it's like, yeah, don't listen to them. No Q&A, just get them to do what you want to do. And it forces you to be like a militant, NAZI type person of like, no empathy, no compassion. Do as you're told and make sure that you're giving orders, because we're OTs here. We're tone 40 intention, right? Get it done and get it done yesterday. It's
That's right.
gross.
That's exactly where I was going. Because the whole point of the pitiless product officer is the only acceptable answer is done, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Right? That's it. That's the only thing you're supposed to be saying.
You're not even allowed to ask why. Like, I got told off several times because I'm always seeking greater understanding, right? If someone tells me to do something, okay, cool, I'll do it. But I want to understand why you're asking me to do it, because I want to further my knowledge and my education so that I can understand the thought process. I can understand why you're asking me to do that, because then I can develop my knowledge so that I can do better next time. If you just say, hey, Alex, stick this in the microwave for 20 seconds. Okay. I'm never going to learn why it needs to be 20 seconds and not 15 or 30. I want to understand it. So I would always ask why. And don't do that in Scientology. Stop asking why. Stop with the Q&A. Stop with the backflash. Just do as
Okay,
you're bloody
so I was right with my first assumption. It's just a different context.
told.
That's
And
right.
that really didn't sit right with me when I was in Scientology, because I'm not the sort of person to to just say yes sir, how high sir.
Exactly.
That was
Few
my
of us.
number one biggest problem the whole time I was on staff. My biggest problem was being told off a backflash.
I'm telling you, man, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah. Oh man. Because again, I mentioned at the beginning of this thing, right? Double bind. So let's talk about this real fast. Scientology, right? As an overall philosophical religious movement, what is it trying to do? Raise your self-determinism, improve your personal awareness and ability. Well, if you keep getting ignored, don't listen to that guy, right? Told that you don't know what the hell you're talking about, that nothing you tell me is going to have anything to do with the solution to this problem, but where's your CSW? I mean, it's crazy making,
Mhm.
right? Because it's like, well, how am I supposed to submit a CSW to you with a full solution to this problem if I don't know what I'm talking about and nothing I say has anything to do with the real solution to the problem?
Or even better, Chris, did you ever have this? Your senior going, cool, fix this. And you go, okay, I've got to do a CSW. And you're like, but I don't understand what the problem is I'm trying to fix. So how am I meant to do a CSW if I don't understand what the problem is? I've just been told to
Exactly.
come up with a solution. I don't
Where's your
have all the
solution?
data.
Where's your solution? Where's your solution? I
Where's the
hated
solution?
that phrase.
But where's the fucking problem?
Oh my God. I have heard, and it gets so bad in Scientology culture. I heard parents say that shit to their kids,
Yeah.
right? Scientology parents would drag that stuff over into their family life. And I've
Mhm.
seen parents, I mean, remember Ian Rafalco talked about this, right? Being raised with stats. And your chores are all around your stats and don't give me a problem and stuff like that. I've seen some militant Scientology
Mhm.
parents really go to town with this stuff. But as far as, so you have this other double bind, which I'll also bring up here. Do you remember the policies about post responsibility?
About what? About how don't abandon your post and take your response. Like, your job is your job. Like, I can't remember the wording of it, but it's like, this is your baby. You are responsible for your post and don't abandon it. And you are wholly responsible for ensuring that you perform and get results, right?
That's right. And the key word that's doing all the heavy lifting there is wholly
Mm.
responsible. So, how can you be wholly responsible when your senior can come along and bypass you at any moment
Hmm.
and doesn't listen to you doesn't care about your data or facts, and when it comes to solving some problem, how could you possibly, even in Scientology terms of a KRC triangle, how could you possibly have responsibility for this position, much less total responsibility
Yeah,
for it?
and how can you be completely responsible for your job when your senior comes in and says, "Do this," and you knowing that that's not going to work and knowing that that's going to make it worse, have to then do it, and then afterwards he'll come and tell you, "Well, why did you mess up?" It's like, well, if I'm being wholly responsible, I would say to my senior, "No, sir, that's not going to work. If I do that, this is going to happen. And that's why this doesn't work. And I can tell you because I've tried it before. This is my job. I know what I'm doing. Trust me here." No, but that's backflash. That's Q&A. None of that. You have to just say, "Yes, sir." So you can't be responsible for your post if you have to follow orders.
Exactly. Another one I'll point out, um, there is the staff pay and your own personal agency problem in these organizations. And this is a real rocker, right? Because Scientology staff are paid based on a unit allocation per job. Every job in the organization has an X number of units assigned to it based on where it's at in the hierarchy. And X number of units get added up each week and divided by the organization has an X number of units assigned to it based on where it's at in the hierarchy. And X number of units get added up each week and divided by the total amount of money they have to pay every. Everybody. And if the unit is worth $10 and your job is 2 units, you're getting $20 that week. And maybe the ED has 5 units, so he's getting $50 that week. That's how the staff pay. System has always worked in Scientology. So you're wholly responsible for your post. You're 100% responsible for your statistics. If your statistics are up, you are up stat and you're supposed to be rewarded. But what's the contradiction?
Well, there's commendations and rewards, but there's also penalties, right? I think that's even a whole video in and of itself, is rewards and penalties. Hubbard writes that, it's equal. You can't just penalize someone if you don't also have rewards. It's, that's how it's meant to work anyway.
Well, correct. And in fact, one of those rewards, we might say, would be your bloody pay. And how is it you're supposed to have agency over your unit production when the unit production could be based on some other dude on the other side of the building, right? You're not the guy making money. You're in the
All right. Keep realizing my mic is off.
See over your unit production when the unit production could be based on some other dude on the other side of the building, right? You're not the guy.
Okay, so let's go to
Supposed to have agency over your unit production when the unit production could be based on some other dude on the other side of the building, right? You're not the guy making money. You're in the course room supervising, you're in the auditing room auditing, you're down in CF writing letters, right? Maybe you're a bookstore guy and you're selling books, but that's only some of the money that's coming in. And maybe you're doing great, but other places are falling down, other places that have nothing to do with you. And if you go over there and start doing their job, what's that called?
And also, let's
called hobby horsing.
let's not forget that book sales and book finances are always kept completely independent from everything else anyway. So
Okay, so that's a new thing. Finance. I don't know why I keep doing that when I can just paste.
book finances are always kept completely independent from everything else anyway. So it literally wouldn't make a difference how many books I sold in a week to how much pay I'd get, because the pay is determined on org gross income. And book income is separate. Like, you're not allowed to use book income on anything else other than book sales. Like, it's a whole separate account. And yes, it does all add up in towards gross income in terms of the stat. But like, I might have a load of money in the book account that I can use to get new Dynetics t-shirts and like do all the stuff that we need to do, and it would be great. But that same week, nobody got paid because there's no money in the org, because there's no students got audited, for example.
That's right.
And you just talk about pay there, just to give some people some examples. I've got another document here which I can't show on screen because it has my personal tax information on it. But in a whole year of me working full time, the Church of Scientology London, Monday to Friday, 9 till 6. And let's not forget, most days I actually stayed until 8 or 10 p.m. because we were book selling. A whole year, full time, the total earnings that I had in a whole year, £121.69 in a whole year.
Hold on. That's the euro. need the pound. Hang on. Done.
Wow.
In a second year, £451 and 88 pence. So it went up. In fact, my salary more than quadrupled.
Quadrupled.
But it's still 400 quid in a whole year.
And but Al,
Hold on, what the fuck was that symbol that I needed? Oh fuck it, I'll just copy paste.
Alex, London's an ideal org.
And we were booming. My stats were in power, Chris. I've got commendations saying the work.
Hold on, you got commendations.
I'm doing for this org is vital for Scientology's expansion.
And this is why Hubbard had to come up with this crazy idea of responsibility, being that you're responsible for everything everywhere in the universe, so that you would go along with this fucking bullshit, because you can't have agency in a unit system like that over your pay. You're stuck with whatever the results are of the entire organization. And that's fine if it was a more kumbaya, let's all work together, let's group this and actually organize efficiently. But as we've shown just today, much less in our earlier episodes, this is organized to prevent anybody working together and actually getting something done in an efficient way because of all these bureaucratic paperwork barriers and objectifying of people that happens in a Scientology organization. So I hope we're getting across in these episodes that this goes far beyond, some bureaucratic Brazil level, nonsense. This is destructive. Like, this is stuff that you can't grow in the face of this.
Yeah, Scientology is both money making and individual, right? It's one thing learning about it that we've been talking about it today, and I've been reading the comments as we've been going on. Some really good. We should do, like, maybe at the end of this series, we should do a separate Q&A where we go
I
through all
agree.
the questions.
Yes.
But like, think it's one thing to learn about it and to talk about how crazy it is, but think about when that's put into practice. If you've been raised in this thing and your parents are employing these things over you, like you just mentioned, Chris, with the stats and chores and so on, then you join the Sea organization, and all day, every day, for 20 years, your whole life is being dictated by these control mechanisms and these policies, and your whole understanding of life is based around these crazy making nonsensical policies and procedures, right? Even if you get to the point where you think, I'm done with it, I don't believe in this, and this doesn't make sense, and I'm going to stop applying all of this in my life, your brain is going to be wired to think in this way. And that
Exactly.
takes a long time to unwire and unscramble in your head.
That's
Like, this is the
exactly right.
long-term impact that I want people to understand. Even if you've left, your brain is literally going to be trained to think like this. Even if you disagree with it yourself, you're still going to be thinking about efficiency, about making the most of your time, about dev T, like, and that takes time to figure out. I'm still figuring stuff out, and I've been out for like a decade.
Tell me about it. And in fact, I mean, because I'm just going to completely jump on that for another reason
Do
to
it.
promote my book. It is what you just said is a central theme of my book, What Now? Because it is that time it takes to unwind this stuff is longer than I think a lot of people appreciate. And it's not because people are horrible or bad or wrong or aren't trying to do the work or anything like that. It's because these things in our head take time to change. And you could say, like, muscle memory, it takes a while to change. It doesn't just, oh, I decide I'm going to have this ability and I have it. You have to train it or untrain it. And
Mhm.
our these kind of things that Scientology instills in us, this indoctrination, is deep.
Mhm.
And that's why when you come out, you can still look and act and sound just like a Scientologist, and it's like, wow. Which is why unwinding that really does, I think, I believe, require a lot of this kind of deconstruction. That's why I've been having fun for a decade taking this stuff apart, you know?
Yeah, some people find it easy.
All right, I think we are all set with this video, so I am going to say peace out to y'all. I want to thank you guys for sitting and watching. I know it might have been a little boring, but I still appreciate that you stuck around nonetheless. And I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.